Welcome, friends, to Seeds of Unity, the podcast of the Holy Union Sisters, Cameroon Area. I am Sr Veronique Metiendjo. Today, we are honored to welcome Sr Joan-Mary who recently gave us a powerful conference on the theme, The Art of Building Together in the Midst of the Storm, in our health facility here in Odza, Yaoundé. In a world where our healthcare environments can be demanding and sometimes tense, she reminded us that we are not just colleagues, we are one body, one mission, one family. Sister Joan, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Sister, for inviting me to this platform. I am Sr Joan-Mary Metiendjo, a Holy Union sister. I live in Obili, a quarter in Yaoundé, and I work in the Catholic University of Central Africa in Colbison and in Ekunu.
Sister Joan, in your conference, you spoke about building together in the midst of the storm. In concrete terms, what does a storm look like in our healthcare communities today? And how can we transform those moments of tension into opportunities for growth rather than division?
Okay, Sister, as we know, naturally, a storm is a violent, disruptive disturbance of the atmosphere characterized by strong winds, at times with rain, thunder, lightning, etc. And a storm, therefore, in a healthcare community today is anything that can destabilize its peaceful working atmosphere. We can cite tensions, lack of communication, workload, negativity, lack of feedback, talking at somebody's back, not able to confront others when problems arise, keeping grudges. Those are the different ways or different types of things that can build up into a storm. And you ask how we can transform these moments of tension into opportunities for growth rather than division. I would say that one of the biggest ways of handling tension is through dialogue. A one-to-one talk, straight to the point, and the dialogue is always meant to look for ways to move forward, not to remain on the same spot, not to dwell much on the problem, but to see how to move ahead. Then we can have being positive. Positivity is something that helps to give one energy to move on. Then being proactive instead of reactive. Being proactive is doing things in order to prevent the negative things to come in so that we start reacting. That is acting before something happens or something wrong happens. And the next thing I can suggest is being each other's keeper.
You also reminded us of St. Paul's image of the body with many members. In a professional environment where roles and hierarchies are very defined, how can we truly live this spirituality of one body so that no one feels, let's say, superior or excluded?
Looking at the spirituality of St. Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, from verse 12, he gives the analogy of the body, which though made of many parts, is a unity, and this unity is called the body. As such, one part cannot say, I do not need the other. And that will render the body handicapped. So we take the case of the health community, therefore, as I earlier said, we can say the doctors are the brain that does the diagnosis. So that's the brain, that's the head. And when they do the diagnosis, they also take the decision. Then we can say the nurses are like the heart that beats at the patient's rhythm. Then the assistant nurses are the hands that touch and bring comfort to the patients. We look at the administration, the administrative sector is like the backbone on which the whole community stands or the whole body stands. And then we can talk of the auxiliary workers as the feet of that body of the health community. So imagine that one day the auxiliary workers stand up and say, well, we are not we are not going to work today. Or the administration says we don't need the auxiliary workers. It would mean that the health community will lack its feet. So given this analogy, no part is therefore superior to the other. The doctors can't function without the nurses and vice versa. So one part cannot say they do not need the other. And with this, therefore, I encourage, a lot of community living, community way of working, collaboration. The fact that the doctor knows he needs the nurses, and the nurses, they know they need the doctor, and no one is superior to the other. But each one should be humble enough and accept his or her role. You are a doctor, be happy with your role as a doctor, and be happy with your role as a nurse, be happy with your role as an auxiliary worker, and as such, give the best of yourself in that your role. And in giving the best of yourself in that role, know that you are working for the whole body, which is the health community.
You emphasized servant leadership inspired by Jesus. In situations where authority is challenged or when conflicts arise within a team, how can a leader remain both firm and deeply rooted in humility and grace?
On the question of leadership in such a structure, it is very pertinent to have a stable leadership. What I mean by stable, if we look at Jesus's leadership, Jesus was a leader who was always with his apostles. He was always with his apostles. And so as a leader, to show them that he was one with them and not just a guru or their big man, if we can say so, Jesus gave them that example of good leadership, and which is shown through service. And this service culminated in the washing of the feet at the Last Supper. This service also passed through the many healings and the times he sat and listened to people and talked to them, in his parables. Even in his healing miracles, he took time to listen to the people. So these are some of those examples of serviceable leadership. So he washed his feet of his disciples who called him master. And these are the people who looked up to him. He did not look down on them to say that they are just nobodies, or they are just low class or collaborators and he was the big man. No. He was always with his disciples. And so the role of a leader is not to cover up problems, when conflicts arise. A leader in time of conflict, in time of storm, is one who will not pretend that this doesn't exist, or one who will not shout at collaborators if they run up to him or her because there's a situation that needs his or her attention. So good leadership entails listening attentively, especially in a tense atmosphere. You can see Jesus listening to all who came to him. Even those whom he knew did not love him, did not want his good, he listened to them. Now, the leader must also be ready and humble enough to accept his or her fault. A leader should be able to communicate properly, clearly, because if everyone is aware of what is happening in the workplace and especially what concerns them, they will feel involved and they will give up all that they have for the work to move on. They will put in all their energy for the work to move on. So the leader must therefore communicate clearly and properly and let people know their roles. A leader is one who delegates powers and not one who does all. Especially in when there's already a problem, there should be a type of a ladder, to reach the leader. If the leader is one who has delegated powers, things can be handled right from the bottom before they arrive at reach the leader. So the leader must treat cases individually and not fear to confront, to correct.
As we conclude today's episode, we are reminded that storms are not meant to destroy us. They can also shape us, refine us, and bring us closer together. Building together is not always easy. It requires humility, communication, accountability, and above all, love. But when we truly see one another as members of the same body, our workplaces become more than professional spaces. They become places of communion and hope. So, Sister Joan, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your heart with us today. And to all listeners, may we continue to build together, even in the storm, with grace, courage, and